Welcome to lecture number 29, exception handling. So, in Java so far we had seen try, throw, catch, and here you are seeing throws. What do you mean by throws? So, suppose the user knows or the programmer knows that there may be an exception in the program, right. For example, let us assume that I am encountering this particular case, right, E is equal to A star B slash C star D, right. So, I know that if either C is equal to 0 or D is equal to 0 or both 0, right. So, there will be a divided by 0 error, arithmetic exception. So, in that case what we can do, when you are writing the class, there itself you are making that there may be an exception, IO exception, input output exception. So, you use the keyword throws, and that particular class we can write that there may be a exception. So, exception handling, this is primarily used to manage the checked exceptions, right. If there is an unchecked exceptions, for example, the null pointer exception, right. So, we do not have any control, right. So, suppose you are trying to create a space and then the pointer, right, assume that in the case of a linked list you are trying to create millions of nodes. At one point of time the pointer may point to the null, right. So, in that case null pointer exception may come. So, these are all the unchecked exception, and we do not have any control over it, alright. So, basically when I am using the keyword throws means, so this is for checked exceptions. So, this is the syntax for Java throws, right. So, you have a return type, you have name of the method, then you are using the keyword throws and then exception class name, right. So, then you will have the method name, right. So, anyway we will see an example. So, this is the syntax, right. So, we will see an example. So, as I already said, so which exception should be declared? You are going to declare the exception. So, the checked exception should be declared because the unchecked exception, right. So, this can be controlled, right, unchecked exception can be controlled, and also if you are getting error, for example, the stack overflow error or virtual machine error, right. So, you cannot do anything, right, and in fact these are all beyond your control, right. So, exception, right, when it is a checked exception, so I can always declare the exception. So, this we are going to see how we are going to define the exception, alright. So, here so we are going to see a class test throws 1, alright, test throws 1, I am giving the name test throws 1. Here I have a member function void m, right, which uses throws, right, which uses throws IO exceptions. So, that means I am expecting some exception over here, that is the meaning. In this function I may expect, right, some exception. So, you are defining throw new IO exception device error. So, suppose when you are calling when you are going to call the function, or your object is going to call the function, and if the compiler is reaching that particular right line, so then there will be an error, that is a device error, right. So, this will throw the exception, that we will see how we are going to handle this. Now, another function void n throws may be, right, but we have not defined any throw over here, there is no exception here. So, it is calling the function m, right, it is calling the function m. So, obviously when suppose, right, in the main we are calling n, right. So, that n function will call m, right, n method will call m, and m you have IO exception, right. So, let us have here another function called void p. So, here you are trying, alright. So, try calling the function n, alright. So, when you are calling the function n will call m and m will throw the IO exception. So, when it is throwing the IO exception, that will be caught over here, right. So, when it is throwing the exception, that will be caught over here, right. So, let us have the main function over here. So, that means you have only one driver class, which is a test throws 1 driver class, and we are creating an object obj under test throws 1 class. This obj is invoking p. When this obj is invoking p, it is going over here, right, try calling the method n, and n is calling the method m, right, and if you look at over here, m again throws IO exception. So, here it is throwing the IO exception, correct. So, here it is throwing the IO exception. So, when it is throwing the IO exception, it will be caught by catch. So, this we have seen several times, alright. So, catch exception. So, system.out.println exception handle will be printed, alright. So, then it will come over here line number 17, line number 17 you have one print statement, normal flow will be printed. So, these two will be printed, alright. So, here we have used, first time we have used throws, alright. So, from this function I am expecting that this may, alright. So, when it goes inside this function I may expect that this will throw some exception. So, that is what you are writing, that is what you are defining over here, right. So, this is a checked exception, and since it is being checked exceptions, alright. So, I can define like this, I can declare like this, correct. So, I can declare like void n, then I am using the throws keyword, then input output exception. That means in this function I can expect some exception, right. So, this is how this is being handled, and you are getting these two output, exception handled and normal flow will be printed. So, when you are declaring the exception, right. So, in case you are declaring the exception, if exception does not occur, the code will be executed, right. So, in the namesake you put, right, but exception may not occur at all, nothing wrong, the code will execute. Suppose if exception occurs, right, and the exception will be thrown, suppose you are declaring, right, in case you are declaring the exception, right, and if the exception is occurring, so the exception will be thrown at runtime because throws does not handle the exception, right. So, the exception will be thrown during the runtime, the reason is the keyword throws, right. So, does not handle the exception, right. So, these are all the two cases when you are declaring the exception. I mean, you can see that, in fact, we will see an example. So, program if exception does not occur, but whereas you are using throw and IO exception, right, nothing wrong, it will work. So, let us consider class M, right. So, you have void method throws IO exception. So, here you are putting system.out.println device operation performed, right. So, you are having one print statement, and let us have test throws 3, which is a driver class. You have the main program, again you are writing throws IO exception, right. You are declaring an object M under class M, right, object small m under class M, and then you have constructor dynamically allocated memory. Now, M is invoking method, when M is invoking the method, right. So, this will be called and device operation performed will be printed, right. So, device first print is this and the second print is this, right. So, these two will be printed. So, device operation performed and normal flow will be there, right. So, this is what the first in output we are expecting, this device operation performed, and the second output is normal flow, right. So, these two we are getting as a output. I hope it is clear for everyone. So, here in this case we do not have any exception. So, this program does not have any exception. So, when it does not have any exception, it will work like your usual program, whereas here you are using throws 1 and also here you are using second time throws. So, 2 times you are using throws, you can do that, right, not a problem. That is what the first point over here is. And in the second point, suppose if the exception occurs, right, assume that if the exception occurs. So, here void method throws IO exception. So, this is the exception, IO exception device error, alright, throw new input output exception device error, alright. So, in that case assume that the same program test throws 4 is the driver class main program creating a small object M under capital M class. This M is invoking method, alright, M is invoking method. When M is invoking the method, so here you have this is the exception, correct. So, when it is alright giving the exception, the device error will be printed and then you will have, right, device error will be printed, it is printing over here, correct, and then that is it, okay. So, you are getting, in the case of a standard error, you are getting device error. So, you are getting device error, right. So, this is how it works. If the exception occurs, so this is the problem, right, and then it is saying, so M dot method when it is calling, correct. So, here you go, you have a IO exception. So, that device error is being printed over here in the STD error, right. I hope it is clear for everyone, and in fact, so when you are calling this, so line number 10 when you are calling m dot method, right. So, this is creating a problem. You have IO exception, so the device error will be printed. So, this is how we are taking care of the exceptions. So, now we will see two case studies, right. So, the first case study, create a grading system where students are assigned grades based on their marks. If a student enters invalid marks, let us say below 0 or above 100, the system should throw an exception, right. So, this is how we can use the application. So, for many examples we had seen divided by 0, right, other than divided by 0. So, these are all some of the examples, right. So, below 0 or above 100. Now, the system should throw an exception and handle it using custom exception handling, alright. So, you are going to, so usual exception handling, custom exception handling is nothing but whatever the exception handling that we have studied, try, throw, catch. So, now create a student class that holds the student's marks, define a custom exceptions invalid marks exception, right, define a custom exception invalid marks exception. So, now use try, throw and catch to handle invalid marks entered by students, right. So, let us see how this works. So, I have invalid marks exception class, right. So, I have invalid marks exception class. This is extending the exception, the inbuilt class, correct. So, this we had seen several times we had seen. So, now you have, this is a class and here you have the constructor invalid marks exception, right, the public constructor, and you have one argument. So, one argument constructor, parametric constructor, and then you have one super class called message, right, super. So, that means it will call the exception and the message will be passed, right. So, here in this case the super class is nothing but the inbuilt class called exception. Another class is class student. The class student contains name whose data type is string and marks whose data type is integer, right. So, here you go the constructor. So, the constructor is initializing name of the student and marks, alright. So, here you have throws invalid marks exception, right. So, we have started using throws, alright, we have started using throws. Here this dot name, right. So, this dot name equal to name, right. So, whatever name we are passing that will be copied into this dot name. So, that means once you put this dot name, so you will not get any null character, alright. And then you have the setter method, alright, setter method set marks marks. So, we will see where you have defined the set marks. So, we are not defined so far. So, set marks, it will come marks you are passing, whatever you are passing over here, alright, in marks, and you are calling set marks method. Now, here you go, here you have the set marks method. So, set marks, this method you have one argument which is throwing invalid marks exception, right. If marks less than 0 or marks greater than 100, right, if marks less than 0 or marks greater than 100, it is throwing, right. So, invalid marks exception, then it is printing certain statements invalid marks, suppose it is let us say -5 or 105, right, whatever be the marks. Marks should be, then it will give information to the user, marks should be between 0 and 100, right. Otherwise, if the user is entering the marks between 0 and 100, that means when it is satisfying this condition, marks will be assigned to this dot marks, okay. So, that is what the set marks function over here, set marks method over here. So, now you have one member function called, right, in fact it is a method called get grade, right, whose return type is character. So, if marks greater or equal to 90, return A, the grade is A. If marks greater or equal to 80, return B. If marks greater or equal to 70, return C, and if marks greater than or equal to 60, D, else return fail, right. So, if the marks is going below 60, it is fail. So, now you have public void display student info, right. So, we are printing student name, which is name, marks and grade is a get grade, alright. So, there is a get grade function, there is a get grade method, right. So, it is calling a get grade method. In fact, we had seen get grade before. Okay, fine. So, that will be returning one character. So, now this is the main method, alright. So, main driver class capital M and small main. So, this is the main method. So, we use try, alright. So, try, you are trying to create student 1 under student, and then here you have constructor student, and then you are passing the name Anshul and marks 85, alright. So, student Anshul and 85. So, capital S. So, you are having student, right. So, this is the name marks, this dot name is name. So, now it is Anshul, and set marks 85, yes, it is valid. So, this dot marks is equal to marks 85. So, name is Anshul, marks is 85. So, this is being set, try, you are using try. So, now student 1 dot display student info. So, this will display the student info, right, name, marks, and once marks we know, right, 85, right, 85. So, get grade, it is calling get grade method. So, 85, if it is greater than or equal to 80, return B. So, greater than or equal to 90, no, false. So, else it is going over here, marks is greater than or equal to 80, yes, true, 85 greater than or equal to 80, return B. So, the grade B will be returned, alright. So, this is what it is being printed over here, correct. So, it is being printed over here. So, next student, right, student 2, right, whose class is student, right. Assume the name of the student is Jane Smith and he is code 105, right. So, when you are passing this, what will happen, alright. So, when 105 is being passed, it will throw the exception, right. It will throw the exception. What is the exception? Invalid marks exception, right. So, invalid marks you have 105. So, mark should be between 0 to 100. So, this exception will be thrown. So, when this is being thrown, correct, you have the caught, alright. So, here you have the caught. So, exception caught, correct, because the continuation. So, exception caught and E dot get message. So, this E is invoking get message. So, here you go, the get message may be available in your superclass, right. So, that will be printed. So, get message, it is available in the superclass. So, that will be printed. So, exception is being caught. So, now when you run the code, you will get the output, correct. So, in fact, I talked about the exception caught and the message will be, right. So, the message will be this one, right. So, invalid marks. So, this will be printed. So, this is what it is returning, right. This is what it is throwing, in fact, invalid marks. So, here in this case 105, mark should be between 0 to 100 will be printed. So, this will be thrown and you have the superclass exception, correct. So, whatever it is throwing, so E dot get message, in fact, we had seen this before, right. E dot get message will be printing invalid marks 105, mark should be between 0 and 100 will be printed. And in fact, I also told exception caught will be printed, it is being printed here and this is nothing but E dot get message. The object E is invoking, right, the object E is invoking get message, right. So, get message you have this, that will be printed, right. So, now if you look at this case study, we have used throws, try, alright. So, here you go try, correct. So, try and the exception is being throw, right. Also, we have used the catch, correct. So, here you go catch, throws. So, whatever we studied so far, we have used it. We will see one more case study, right. So, let us consider this case study. Let us create a university admission system, right. Let us create university admission system where student must be admitted based on certain criteria, alright. So, university admission system. The system will check whether the student meets the age score requirements for admission. If the student does not meet the criteria, the system will throw the exception, right. Here we are seeing the application. We will use custom exceptions to handle the invalid cases and demonstrate the use of try, throw, catch and throws, right. So, all exceptions whatever we have studied so far, we are going to use this. So, the requirement is student must be at least 18 years old, right, and 18-year-old to apply for admission, right, must be at least 18 years old. Student must have scored at least 60%, right, or 60 marks to be eligible for admission, right. So, the university admission system, and it is following certain criteria, and if they are not following these requirements, then it has to throw the exception, and we are using try, throw, catch and throws. So, now what are the steps we have to follow? You have to create a class that holds students name, age and score, right. So, define two custom exceptions, invalid age exception and insufficient score exception, right. So, we are going to use two custom exceptions, right. So, that we are going to define, that is called the custom exceptions, invalid age exception and insufficient score exception. Use throws to declare that the methods might throw an exception, right. So, use try, throw and catch to handle the exceptions during the admission process. So, these are the steps we have to follow. So, under which if you look at this code, so let us have a class called invalid age exception. So, which is extending the inbuilt class exception, which is a super class, right. Now, you have a constructor invalid age exception where you have one string message. So, here you have super message, the super class message. So, that means, so here you have a super class and then the super class constructor will be called where you are passing message. So, another class insufficient score exception, that is also extending exception, alright. So, public insufficient score exception, so that means this is a constructor, one argument constructor. So, again it is a super message, it is calling the super class exception. So, now I have class student, the student has name, age, score, name string, data type, age is an integer and score is the integer. So, now you have student, alright. So, student which is nothing but the constructor, right, line number 28 which is a constructor. Here you have string name, age whose data type is integer and score whose data type is integer. So, throws invalid age exception and insufficient score exception, alright. So, this is the first time we are seeing throws, two exceptions, two custom exceptions, right, invalid age exception and insufficient score exception. So, in fact, so we are having this as a class, right. So, class invalid age exception and class insufficient score exception. So, right. So, here you have throws and name is assigned to this dot name and set age method will be called by passing age, set score will also be called. So, set age is here, right. So, checked exception throws invalid age exception, correct. So, it is throwing invalid age exception. If age less than 18, then it is be throwing, right. So, 17 or 16 they are not eligible for the university admission. So, throw new invalid age exception. So, you are passing this message, age must be 18 or above for admission, right. Otherwise, this age equal to age, right. So, age will be copied into age properly, this dot age properly. Similarly, set score, right. So, throws insufficient score exception, I may get the exception, right. Score may go less than 60, right. If the score is less than 60, throw new insufficient score exception and that is printing score must be or passing score must be 60 or above for admission, passing in the sense for the output, right, printing the message. This dot score equal to score. So, otherwise, if it is greater than or equal to 60, score will be properly copied into this dot score, fine. So, with this in mind, alright. So, in fact, one more method is there, display student info, name of the student, age, score, status, right. So, it is a printing admitted, because non-admission it is throwing the exception. So, we do not need to worry, correct. So, class university admission system, public static void, right, main. So, you have come to the main and that means this is the driver class, university admission system is the driver class. So, you are you are trying to create a object student 1 under student, alright. So, student constructor is passing 3 arguments, Kishore, age is 19 and marks is 75, score is 75, right. So, then in the student, all right, this constructor, here you go, this constructor. So, name Kishore will be copied, set age will be called. So, set age is 19, therefore, this dot age is age, right, and then set score will be calling this 75 will be passed over here, right, 75, this dot score will be 75. So, this is not a problem, nothing will be thrown, the program will work as such. So, when I display this information, name is Kishore, age is 19 and score is 75, admitted, status is admitted, no problem. Suppose, right, so here you go Pradeep, right. So, system.out.println, that means a new line. I am creating another student, student 2, right, whose constructor is student. I am passing 3 arguments, Pradeep 17 and 85. So, what will happen, right, age, name not a problem, Pradeep, age is 17, 17 less than 18 is true, right. So, when it is true, your invalid age exception, right, the checked exception, and here you have invalid age exception is going to print age must be 18 or above for admission, right. That means it is throwing this exception. So, when it is throwing the exception, it will be caught where? So, invalid age exception. So, it is being caught. So, you are getting the information admission failed, and what you are getting e dot get message, this one, age must be 18 or above for admission, right. So, this you are getting, and here you go, alright. So, another catch function, I do not think we have any score less than 60, alright. So, which is not a problem. So, maybe let us see, maybe one more, alright. Yeah. So, here the catch will happen, right. So, here either one, suppose both 17 and let us say mark is 55, correct. So, in that case the second one will also be called, correct. So, here you go, one more example, one more student we will create, student 3, try student 3, right, under the constructor student. So, I am passing the name Anshul, age 20, score is 55, alright. So, you are trying to display the student info. In fact, in the previous case, you are trying to display the student info, alright, whereas this will be caught, right, this will be caught over here, and then admission failed. So, then it will display whatever be the information. So, here in this case Anshul, alright. So, here you have Anshul, the age is 20 and score is 55, right, age is 20 and the score is 55, right, age is 20 and the score is 55. So, what will happen? So, here you go. So, this dot name equal to name Anshul, this dot age is 20, and when the 55 comes, right, score is 55 which is less than 60, right. So, this insufficient exception will be called, correct. So, insufficient score exception will be called and this will be printed. So, you can see here. So, this will be caught here, catch, correct. So, this will be caught here. So, insufficient score exception, admission failed, and then e dot get message because of the score, alright, the admission whatever we have written. Score must be 60 or above for admission will be printed, right. So, this is what exactly happening, alright. So, in these two cases, I mean it will not go to line number 71 as well as, alright, display student, because status is admitted, we have put it here, right. So, that we will not definitely print it, and similarly in the previous case also it will not go over here, Pradeep's case also it will not go to line number 71, and similarly here in this case Anshul's case we are trying to print in 82, it will not go, right. So, this is how we can have try, throw, catch and throws, right. So, with the help of the exceptions. So, we have seen different exceptions and we also now know the standard exceptions, checked exceptions, unchecked exceptions, etc., right. So, in the next lecture we will talk about finally keyword, right, finally keyword, and maybe one example we will look at for the standard exception in C++, okay. So, with this I am concluding this lecture. Thank you very much.